Hi, my name is Glen Bonham. I was born and raised in Augusta, Georgia, home of the Masters. I had two brothers, older and younger. It was just a normal childhood. We had a good time, you know. We grew up in what we thought was normal. Come to find out we were poor. Didn't know it. We just didn't have a lot of money. Stayed in Augusta until I joined the Army. From a very young age, from as early as I can remember, I was raised in the church. Bible school, every time the doors of the church was open, we were there. When I got to be a teenager, it was kind of, we'd sit at the back of the church. When the musical service was over and they were getting ready to preach, we would go downstairs and head out the back door and go to McDonald's. And then come back when church was over. When I was 16, I remember May the 5th, my father's birthday. It was his 45th birthday. I remember my brother waking me up it was a Saturday morning. Woke me up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. He says, Glen, Daddy's dead. I said, what? He says, yeah. He says, somebody killed him. Two acquaintances, he stopped at a bar I don't know if he had anything to drink, I doubt it, since he had gotten away from it. But he stopped to cash his check, $94. And they offered him a ride home. They said, hey, you don't need to walk, we'll give you a ride home. Well, instead of giving him a ride home, they tried to take his money from him. And of course, my dad was a fighter. He wasn't going to have any of that. Well, one of them hit him in the neck with a 2x4, and it broke his neck, and it killed him. And they tossed him out on a trash pile on the other side of the canal and just left him there like he was just garbage. And it was terrible. It was like, whoa, things have changed drastically. And I was already working and part-time job, and my money was going to the household. You know, our church was dropping off food for us, and we're helping out in other ways. You know, they were just really good. I did not, I had no anger towards the guys because I was raised in the Church of God, and we were always taught to forgive. And if I wanted forgiveness, I would have to forgive. And it was tough to forgive, but you know, God's always forgiven me for everything. So shortly after he was killed, my older brother was drafted and was sent to Vietnam. So I became the man of the house. And I was 16, so I had to go get a driver's license. I had no desire to get a driver's license, but I had to because Mother had bought a car. She went and learned how to drive and bought a car. And so I had to help get my license so I could run errands and things for her. And then of course I worked. I've been working since I was 13 years old. I joined the Army in 1971. I went to basic training in September 1971 to early December 1971. And then I stayed at Fort Jackson until time for me to go to language school. My MOS was going to be as a 98 Golf, which is a linguist. And I had to go out to Monterey, California to learn the language I was going to speak, which was Chinese. And that was different. Then I had to go to Texas, Goodfellow Air Force Base, which is not really an Air Force base, it's a school, to learn my MOS, which was 98 Golf, and voice intercept operator. So we spent 3 months there learning what I was supposed to do in the Army. Chinese linguist, yeah, things I can't really get into. Then I got assigned to Fort Meade, Maryland. And actually, my wife came to work there too in 1975, June of 1975. We worked in the same office. And she was the secretary there. We got married in March 4th, 1977. Ha! She thought I'd forget that. We've been married for 47 years. I'm gonna tell you, if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be. She has been a great help to me and seen me through a lot of issues, health issues. Couldn't ask for a better career. I got out February 1st, 1978 because they wanted to send me to Korea, which I didn't mind going to Korea, but I just married my wife and I wasn't gonna leave her in a shop with a bunch of sailors and Marines, so I got out of the service. And then we moved to South Carolina. We bought a house. And I kind of wanted to be back in the service, so Paula and I discussed it, and she says, I don't know, you sure you want to do this? I said, absolutely. And so 5th of August of 1980, I rejoined the Army and just sent me straight to Japan. I was like, whoa. That was a whole different world. And it was fun. I enjoyed it. And Paula got to come over after I had gotten housing. We enjoyed it. We didn't stay on base. We got out and went around the countryside and met people, and we made friends, some Japanese friends. And
then, so how much longer were you in the military after that, retired?
I retired in February 1997.
Can you tell us something in Chinese?
I could. Ni yao wo shuo shema. What do you want me to say? So, ni hao ma.
Which means good morning.
Yeah, it means good morning, how are you? August, I think it was the 18th of 1975. I was working a part-time job in a liquor store. I had kind of fell to the wayside, even though I still believed in God, And actually, I'd be driving to work and my inner voice would be telling me, Glen, you need to quit this job. Glen, you need to quit this job. And I said, it was easy, $5 an hour, and when we'd total up the bill at the end of the evening, we could have a couple of beers and just leave the empties in the cooler. And it didn't, they didn't charge us for them. And then we'd put the money up in the place that we were supposed to leave it and lock up. The lady lived upstairs, so we would lock up when we left. And anyway, this one particular night, we've been having some severe thunderstorms all that week of August. We called NSA the building. I was walking through the building with a fellow soldier, and I told him, I looked outside and I says, tonight would be a good night for a stick-up. Oh, Lord, did I know. So I went to work, and at 10:30, 2 guys came in. One of them had a pistol, and the other one, he either had a pipe or a sawed-off shotgun. I'm not sure which. I was more concerned with the pistol being pointed at me. So I put my hands up, and he says, "Get your hands down," because there was a window behind me. And I said, "Okay." And I emptied the till for him, gave him everything, pulled the rig bill so that the state troopers would get the signal. He was standing at the door with it open, and he says, "Lay face down on the floor." So I did. And I heard the door shut. So I thought they had gone, and I turned and looked behind me, and he's standing there pointing the gun at me. And I threw my arm back, and I says, "No!" And he shot me. And it hit me here and came out here, well, up here. I guess I lost consciousness for a few seconds. And it was a slate floor, so that when I came to, it had tracked down my arm. I even still have some shrapnel in my hand. So I low crawled around the, I didn't know I'd been shot then because I didn't feel it. And I low crawled around the counter. And as I was low crawling, I looked, felt something sticky on my hand. And I looked at it and I thought, uh-oh, there's blood there, you know. So I pulled my shirt back and and blood is just coming out of a little hole in me. I said, oh man. So I tried to feel back here and I didn't feel anything. So I said, well, the bullet must still be in me. I didn't realize, you know. The lady that owned the store was Betty, and I stood at the foot of her stairs. She had the plastic put down to, you know, protect her carpet, and she had really nice carpet. And so I'm standing at the foot of her stairs, and I says, Betty, she says, what? And I says, will you call the police? And I said, by the way, would you call an ambulance? She says, why? And I said, because I've been shot. She said she heard something pop. She just thought something fell off the shelf. She came to the head of the stairs and she saw me standing there with and blood, you know. She says, don't bleed on my carpet. I said, yes, ma'am. So I went back out to the front and I locked the door, and then the state troopers came, and I had such an adrenaline high you wouldn't believe. I mean, it was just, I never felt anything. It's still. And so I unlocked the door so the state trooper could come in, and he could tell I was really supercharged. And he says, he picked up the chair that was behind the counter and put it on the floor. He says, sit down. I said, that's all right. I said, I don't need. He says, I said, sit down. I said, yes, sir. And I says, do you mind if I have a beer? He says, no, you can't. I says, do you mind if I have a cigarette? Because I smoked at that time. Said, no, you can't. Come on, dude, I just got shot. That's what I'm thinking. Then I was in the emergency room and the MPs came. They said, we came to view the body of the guy that got shot in Laurel. I says, whoa, I'm still alive. Here I am. So then they came back and they talked to me a little bit and asked me some questions. And this has nothing to do with anything, but the guys that shot me were black. And I was raised in Jim Crow South, but I was raised in a racially mixed neighborhood. So there was no issue, no racial issue whatsoever. I was about half asleep and I opened my eyes a little bit and, excuse me, saw a black guy standing at the door, and it scared me. And I closed my eyes and I prayed. I said, Lord, I said, I've never been a racist. You got to take this from me. Help me give it up. And so never had another thought about it whatsoever in the world to this day. I found out he was a nurse, the night nurse. Thank goodness. Next morning I called the office, and Paula was the secretary of my office. We were acquaintances. We weren't even dating. And so I called her and I says, Paula, would you get my boss? And I need to speak to my boss. She says, why, you're not coming in? I says, no. And she says, why, did you get drunk last night? And I said, no. I says, I saw work last night. And she says, well, why aren't you coming in? I says, I got shot last night. She says, oh, Glen, tell me you're not serious. I says, okay, I'm not serious. So when the boss came and she heard his end of the conversation, she knew that I wasn't kidding. And so my boss and his boss came to see me at lunchtime, and Paula asked if she could come too. So she came, and I was sitting in bed and my legs crossed, and I was smoking, you know, because you could smoke in the hospital back then, and I didn't have a shirt on, and they hadn't changed my bandages. And so I had fluid, you know, and She came to the door and she saw me and she stopped and she grabbed the door. She almost fainted. And I says, "Come on in, ain't nothing wrong." She said, "No, I'm not coming any further." So when I got out of service in '79, Paul and I started going to my brother's church, and we both dedicated ourselves to God, and we were baptized. I say my Christian life became very real to me later in life. When I went back in the Army in 1980, I got away from the church, and when we went to Japan, I didn't go to church. In my last few years in service, we were going to the Dundalk Presbyterian Church because that was the church she was raised in. And we got serious about our Christianity then. And then we had a pastor that kind of messed things up, and people started leaving the church. And some of them are here in this church now. I'm one of them. Paul and I are two of them. Mr. and Mrs. Alville were members of this church. When Mrs. Alville passed away, I went to her funeral. Your father preached the funeral. And when I got back home, I told Paula, I told her, I says, "You gotta hear this preacher," because we weren't going to church anywhere. I said, "You gotta hear this preacher." I said, "You'll like him." And we didn't come to church for a little while, and then she says, "Let's go to that church." I said, "Okay." So we came, and we've been coming ever since. So since I've been here, Paul and I have really gotten closer to God. Being in church and being a Christian has helped me see things differently than if I had never been to church. Throughout my life, I've always, if I've been having a problem, I've remembered what my knees were for. To get down and pray. So that's just me. Because of Christ and being a Christian, I've been able to forgive so much more than I ever would have been in my life. And because of Christ, I have the power to forgive. And I'm so happy for it.